What's good, y'all? It's 16 Chris and a mic, and me in this video really about to get y'all right. So in today's video, I'm gonna be reacting to the rise and fall and rise again of Arby's for me. I really don't eat Arby's. Like, I don't know. Arby's just not top tier, if that makes sense. Like, my favorite fast food place, personally, my favorite fast food place, personally, for real, is Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is just so good. Like, man, Chick-fil-A is so good. If you don't like Chick-fil-A, I'm genuinely, like, you're crazy, bro. You're crazy. Like, Chick-fil-A is just so good, but I mean, nothing wrong with Arby's per se. Like, they cool, I guess. They just not special on them. Like, for real. Like, I wouldn't like, if I see a couple of food places, I'm not gonna be like, oh yeah, let's go to Arby's. No, my buddy. I'll pick McDonald's. I'll pick probably 11 places plus before I pick Arby's. It's that simple. Like, Arby's is not nothing special for me, but I really hope y'all enjoy this video for me, and I'm gonna get straight into it, no cap. This should be interesting.
Arby's is quite a restaurant. I'm about to talk about so many rises and falls, not just typical fluctuations, major ones that they've experienced over the years. Let me try to figure this out. I'm about to talk about a rise, fall, rise, fall, rise, fall, rise, fall, and rise again. I hope that's right. After the video, you can go back to this part and double check it. It's unbelievable. It gets crazy. But let's start off slow at the beginning. There were these two guys. They were brothers named Leroy and Forrest Raffle. They're usually referred to as the Raffle brothers, like how we have the Coen brothers, but instead of making movies, these two were in the restaurant business. In the 1940s, they both graduated from college, one with a degree in finance and the other with a degree in hotel and restaurant administration. It sounds like a good pair to start a restaurant, but they didn't do it right away. In the 1950s, they bought a business from their uncle that dealt with restaurant equipment. If you were starting or remodeling a restaurant at the time, you can call them up and they'd provide you with your stove or fryers or whatever you needed. They'd even help you in designing the kitchen layout and install everything for you. As you would imagine, they were very tuned into the industry. They saw firsthand, and before many others, how the fast food part of it was growing. It was the early 1960s. McDonald's was becoming a household name, and there were a bunch of other businesses popping up, I guess you can say, trying to be the next McDonald's. Though they saw this as an attractive new industry, they also recognized the level of competition. You don't want to compete with McDonald's, and you don't want to compete with everyone trying to be McDonald's. So they tried to cite...
You gonna freaking sell McDonald's? Everyone loves McDonald's, just like I said in the intro. If you go into a fast food place, bro, the first place you want to go is not Arby's. Like, it's literally like, probably not even like 10, in my opinion, not even like, out of 10 places, like, no, bruh. No, it's not even like 10. Like, that's my 10th option. Like, it's a lot of places I will go before I go to Arby's, man.
Step that competition a bit and make themselves different by specializing in roast beef sandwiches. It was a different menu item, but also a more expensive one. In the beginning,
roast beef is just not it, bro. Like, specializing that, it's not it, bro.
Sandwiches were almost 5 times the price of a McDonald's hamburger. It was a way to become a more indirect competitor by attracting a different, more adult, possibly higher income customer. The first Arby's went up in July of 1964 in the small town of Boardman, Ohio. Just to give you an idea of the geography,
Boardman, Ohio,
the business was headquartered in the bordering town of Youngstown.
I think I've been in Youngstown before. Let's show up. I did not know that. That's what's up.
That that first location did pretty well, so I'm thinking the Raffle brothers recognized an opportunity to expand, and the pressure to do it fast, before the industry became saturated and there was no room left for them to do it. I say this because within 3 years of opening that first location, there were now 100 locations. 3 years after that, by the end of the decade, there were 300, and not just in Ohio, across 37 states. Now, the obvious question is, how did they possibly do all this fast? And the answer is a lot of debt, and franchising, and private investors, but yeah, a lot of debt. To this point, it seems like the plan was to expand by any means necessary. Then, once they're large and established enough, they'd be able to have a successful initial public offering, sell the company to the public on the stock market, and use that money to clean things up. It didn't go well. They had some bad luck with things happening in the market, and the IPO never happened, meaning they didn't get the cash that they were counting on, and that's when things went bad. They couldn't afford to pay their loans, and they couldn't afford to operate their business. The bank stepped in, they stopped providing things to the franchisees, so in return, the franchisees stopped giving them their cut of the sales. It was bad news. A company of this size needs a lot of money to operate, and they already used all their funds building their business to this size. And really, what can you do at this point? After a few months of struggling like this, they finally filed for bankruptcy. The whole thing was a major setback, but not the end, obviously. The Raffle brothers remained in control and spent the next 5 years restoring it. By 1975, they were back on track. That's the first rise and fall and rise again. With 500 locations that were overall profitable. Now, they were back on offense, and there was still pressure to expand while that opportunity was there. But they don't want to mess things up again. They didn't want to go into heavy debt, and they didn't trust the stock market would work out after their first experience, so they took a different approach. The idea was, if they were to merge with a larger company, they could use their resources to help build Arby's. In 1976, the Raffle brothers sold their entire business to RC Cola for $18 million, and they remained in charge. Really, a fantastic deal for them. They now had the funding they needed, still controlled the company, and not to mention $18 million in their pocket. That's how Arby's existed for the next 3 years. By 1979, they were up to 800 locations that were still said to be overall profitable. 1979 marks the end of the Raffle brothers' involvement. They decided to step away, retire, and let RC Cola take full control of their creation. As soon as they left, RC Cola messed everything up. Do you remember how genius it was to separate themselves from McDonald's and everyone else by selling roast beef instead of hamburgers?
They tried to be like them.
Well,
and
now
failed.
They started selling hamburgers. I don't know exactly why. Maybe they saw potential in the bigger market, but we can all see how straying away from what made you unique and popular in the first place is not the best idea. Sales fell. They started blending in with everyone else, and that was their existence for the next 5 years. In 1984,
and they don't do it as well as the McDonald's of the world, and you can say Burger King of the world, man. Or pretty much any other place, like, just, Arby's does not like that on the sandwich side, man.
RC Cola, including Arby's, was bought by this guy, Victor Posner, who switched up Arby's management. The new management cut out all that hamburger nonsense, made a few other changes, and essentially brought them back. By the late 1980s, they were opening new locations faster than ever. Now, this new owner, Victor Posner, seems to have hired a good management team, but his intentions with the company were questionable. He was a 67-year-old billionaire known for his long history of hostile takeovers and leveraged buyouts. Not long after he bought RC Cola, he was found guilty of tax evasion, accused of insider trading. This guy is fascinating, but probably not the person you want around your business. The management and the franchisees accused him of not acting in the best interest of the company, essentially pocketing cash from it instead of reinvesting it. It got so bad to where it came to a point where the management and the franchisees tried to come together and buy the company. He refused to sell it, and soon after, many of them either quit or were fired, and the ones remaining did not have a great relationship with him. I think it's safe to say that all of the drama behind the scenes and the questionable motives from the owner caused Arby's to slip again. In 1993, Victor Posner was being investigated for his, I guess you would call, long history of shady dealings, and it didn't end well for him. He was forced to step away away and get rid of the company that owned Arby's. The end result was the creation of a new company called Triarch. They now owned and controlled Arby's with yet another management team. From here, things started improving again. Throughout the 1990s, Triarch was selling its businesses that were unrelated to food and drinks and increasing their involvement in those food and drink businesses. If you watch my video on Snapple, Triarch is a significant part of it. Well, eventually they got rid of Snapple and almost everything else except for Arby's. In 2008, now focused almost entirely on fast food, Triarch bought Wendy's. It was a $2.34 billion deal that brought Arby's and Wendy's together. Soon after, Triarch changed their name to Wendy's Arby's Group. My goodness, I told you there's a lot of changes. Let's keep going. In the more modern era, those years that they spent joined with Wendy's weren't too good for Arby's. When the economy went down in 2008, it was bad news for them. There's evidence of this all over the place, but I think looking at their same-store sales over these 3 years is a quick and easy way to see it. They were deep into the negative every year, much more than the rest of the industry. Just look at Wendy's, for example. They took a hit, but nothing like Arby's. With Arby's slipping so much, Arby's Wendy's Group decided to sell 81.5% of Arby's to a private equity firm for $430 million. The reasoning for them selling it was it allowed them to focus more on their stronger chains. The new owners of Arby's are now called Inspire.
And Wendy's is just better.
That's where they remain today, and things seem to be going better. This article from Forbes from 2017 says that they've grown same-store sales for 14 straight quarters, outperforming the rest of the industry, and some of those are their best quarters ever, which is really good, especially compared to how they were doing. They started doing this thing where they would introduce new menu items like crazy under promotional pricing, and then once they raised the price, they closely monitor how it performs. If it meets a certain requirement, they keep it. Otherwise, they move on to something else. It led to a bunch of successful products, like gyros and a brisket sandwich. Marketing has been a big part of the comeback, too. They've been spending a lot of money on it. I'm sure you know their newest slogan,
We have the meat.
That's been a big campaign. Jon Stewart, back when he was hosting The Daily Show.
The show, I of course know that.
No matter who you are or where you are, you can achieve your career goals.
But it's trash.
University Global. Just like
Would make fun of Arby's. Then Arby's would come back and respond in their own humorous ways, embracing the joke, and it just became a whole funny thing on the show. Pharrell's hat. Remember in 2014, he wore this crazy-looking thing to the Grammys? Arby's tweeted about it, saying they wanted their hat back. That got a lot of attention. Then a few months later, they bought it from him on eBay for $44,000. It's just all stuff to get people to talk about Arby's. It's also worth mentioning that in 2017, they bought Buffalo Wild Wings, and in 2018, they bought Sonic. So those are currently all together. That was a lot. I think we need a summary. In 1964, the Raffle brothers established the first Arby's. By 1970, they built it up to 300 locations across the country, but built it on a shaky foundation. So shaky, they filed for bankruptcy that same year. By 1976, they were back with over 500 profitable locations, but in need of more funding, so they decided to sell it to RC Cola. In 1979, the Raffle brothers ended their involvement, and RC took over and messed things up. In 1984, this very shady character, Victor Posey.
But did the RC brothers, was they still getting money from that dog?
Took control, but hired some good management that turned things back around. By 1993, Victor was fighting with everyone, and in some major league
he was selling.
The sale of the company. It was
For
reformed as Triarch, and Arby's was now under new management. In 2008, they came together with Wendy's and started struggling partially due to bad economic conditions. In 2011, they mostly split.
No, because Arby's is a walking ad.
Wendy's. Started bringing the brand back with the help of Jon Stewart, Pharrell Williams, and Ving Rhames. That's this guy who says, "We have the meat." Alright, hold on. Before I end the video, can I take you on a little detour here? A little journey that I took concerning the name. For me, this journey took years, and I imagine we're all at different stages in it, so what I want to do here is start from the beginning and pull us all through to the end. This is just crazy. The name Arby's, Arbys, have you ever stopped to think where it comes from? It's not a person's name. It's not a word in the dictionary. It's actually a word created to be the name of this restaurant. It's don't see often. For some of you, this is going to blow your mind, and you're going to wonder why you didn't connect the dots sooner. Arby's sounds identical to Arby's. The letters, as we all know, this is a restaurant that specializes in selling roast beef sandwiches, Arby. So that should be the end of it. There was even a famous and somewhat clever commercial in the early 1980s that assigns a meaning to each letter. America's roast beef. Yes, sir. Which, of course, supports this theory. But oddly, very oddly, that's not the case. Remember the two guys that started it, the Raffle Brothers? Well, Raffle Brothers is also Arby. And according to the restaurant representatives over the years, and Forrest Raffle himself, that's where it comes from. Came up with Arby's, which stands for RB, the initial of Raffle Brothers, although I guess customers might think the initials stand for roast beef. That's pretty conclusive, but what is this? I feel like they're messing with us. It's hard to believe that they just stumbled upon this crazy coincidence, RB standing for multiple significant things. I don't know. Let me know in the comments, what do you make of it?
I don't know,
man. Is it really just a coincidence? Because I have a hard time believing that. But also, what do you think about Arby's in general? I'm curious.
It's cheese. It's cheese. Arby's, keeping it a whole bean, it's nothing special. Arby's nothing special. Like, it's not something I go out my way to get. Like, Arby's is just, it's cool. Like, if you don't got nothing else to eat, it's cool. But, like, you don't go out your way to eat Arby's. Arby's is something that's like, if it's there and there's nothing else to eat, alright. But nah, for the most part, no. Arby's is not it. I hope you all enjoyed that video, man. The rise and fall of Arby's. Rise and fall and rise, and yeah. And goodbye, y'all. For sure.
What you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be